Hi, everyone. Good day. Welcome to our masterclass series on change and project management. So we're going to see how a pacer for your IT marathon could be with change and project management. Alrighty then. So I'm Santosh Maiban, expert from Manage Engine ServiceDesk Plus. I've been with this organization for more than 9 years, and I have my experience with implementing ServiceDesk for different customers, taking part in user conferences, trade shows across the world. And with this, I've had enough experience on how the tool has been implemented, how each and every module in ServiceDesk Plus has been configured, and I'm going to share those best practices with you today. Now, before we get into our webinar, here is like a couple of tips and tricks. So this page is where you would go ahead, view your webinar. And if you have any questions anytime during the session, please do post them over here. I will have all these questions answered by the end of the webinar. Also, hope I'm audible enough and everything is clear. If there's any audio issues as well, please do let me know so I could make sure everything is fine. And we are at our fifth masterclass series for masterclass session for this particular series. So here are the different time zones that we have. The webinars happen. A webinar happens at 4 different time zones for user convenience. The best part of the webinar is that all these webinars are recorded. So even after the webinar, you could take a look at it. You could share it to your colleagues. And also do register for every masterclass series, because what happens is we also do send an email once the masterclass sessions are done. All right, so our today's agenda is going to be about discussing the big move to the cloud. How is it going to be handled? And change management. So we're going to see how the process is handled through change management and keep close track of the progress of this particular change along with our project management. So we're going to see how change and project management are going to work with each other. And we're going to also discuss about different types of change that could be created. And finally, once after our demo is done, we're going to have a question and answer session. All right. So here is a scenario where Zilker is an organization that's planning to move all their services from the on-premise setup towards the cloud. So during this particular process, there are certain things that have to be considered. Now, in today's scenario, there are a lot of cloud-based services that's out there. People could sign up, enroll, configure. So you have help desk tools, you have monitoring tools, you have Active Directory, and all the services that you use are there in the cloud. Now, there is Zilker is an organization that's using services in the on-premise, and they want to move their services to the cloud so that it's going to help their organization much better. Now, this is not an easy process as we think of, because moving the on-premises services as we are seeing right now towards the cloud is going to be very, very challenging for the organization. And this is a specific process, not just it's not a challenge just for the IT department, but also for the operations team, the security team. Then there are other service departments within the organization that's going to use your services. So they also need to be in track. And this is not a switch that could just happen within a snap of a finger. It has to take place in sequence. You need to track the entire process. And the moment you start planning this, it's going to be quite overwhelming. It's not going to be very easy, because only when you start planning it, you would get an idea about the entire process. And the very, very important part is about getting the impact analysis. During this particular move, it's not about how you track and progress the change from creation to completion. It's about tracking the progress. And even before you go towards the implementation or planning, you need to know the impact of this entire migration. So that is where we are going to see how ServiceDesk Plus, along with other IT service management modules and IT asset management modules, is going to help plan and execute a change through ServiceDesk Plus. Now, this is the practical scenario Zilker has come up with, and Zilker has all their basic architecture in place, but let's see how they are going to phase it out and how they're going to make this migration happen. So what could be intimidating with the large-scale changes? So missing details. Anything that's large or small with regards to a particular process is really crucial because they would have their part at different stages and we should not be missing them out. Ineffective planning. This would be directly like related with your change data that you gather. The reason is the data that you gather is what is going to be used for planning, and that is where you need to have a proper impact analysis or a tool that gives you the risk of that particular change. So without having that, your planning is going to be ineffective. Then reluctant adherence to workflows. You need to have workflows in place such that only after you gather certain data and it's been validated, you move to the next stage. So that has to be followed. If not, if the workflows are bypassed, obviously there's going to be issues or challenges with the change. Then inefficient resource. Based on the type and the risk and the size of the change, you need to have your resources allocated. You need to have enough tools within the system or within your tool within your help desk to track, manage the progress of the implementation. So that's where you need to have the resources tracked and managed. And lack of transparency. Now, right from the starting to the end, you need to have the change documented properly, move from one stage to the other, and as well as keep communicating with the teams, with the end users, with the business of what's happening, how it is progressing. So there needs to be transparency, but without that, the change could be much challenging. All right. Now, so we have seen what are the challenges that could be intimidating on a change process, and we're going to see what's like how it could be broken down and how minute we could go in with regards to the change process. Now, when you have change, you could conduct change reviews just to make sure that the change that you're implemented right now is done as per what's been proposed and planned and authorized. And if it is deviated, or if there's deviations, or if there's decision changes, that has to go down into the review. The reason is the next time you plan the same type of same kind of a change, this review is going to be very, very helpful. It helps you streamline the process. It helps you to not do the same mistake all over again, and it helps you to plan perfectly. Then define time, scope, and cost. Now you need to have the estimated cost tracked down, the downtime tracked on a change. Only then, based on that, you could implement the change. If you do not have a downtime plan, there would be like real complications during the implementation of the change. Then use foolproof planning. So planning is where you're going to track every single process on the change, like what's the impact, how do you like back it out. So we're going to see all of that in detail. So use our planning stage to like have all the details captured. Identify critical parts. So this is really important, not just as a text content on a particular change document. It has to have practical images with like how it's laid out, what's the current path, and how it could deviate in the future. So that's something really important. Assign the right people. Now, change is a process where stakeholders are going to authorize that. Stakeholders are going to take decisions on that. And based on the authorization, the implementation happens. There are costs involved in that. Now, you need to make sure the right people are involved at the right time for the right change. If not, the changes would be ignored or the decisions would be delayed. So please make sure you involve the right people. So assign the right people to your change and orchestrate your change implementation. So if it's a small change implementation, you can handle it through the change. If it's going to be complex or if it's a huge process, which is going to take a while and it has to be broken down into fragments, yes, you could use different resources which could tie with the change process and track them accordingly. And now we're going to see how to minimize disruptions to business using changes in ServiceDesk Plus. Now, what do we offer? So there's seamless communication between IT and the business that could be done throughout the change management process in ServiceDesk Plus. So the change request validation happens. So when you start submitting the change, it's actually been validated. You track down how exactly are you going to implement, what's the downtime, what's the contingency planning. You're going to track each and everything of this. That's going to be validated. Now, once that's validated, you could secure your approvals from different teams. And as I said, Zilker is planning to move their services to the cloud. So only when you analyze the impact, it would not just be for the IT, it could also be for the business. So you need to secure approvals with every stakeholder. So if that's going to be a unanimous decision as well, it is fine. So you could track it as per audit requirements right in the tool and move on. Then Gantt chart to break down the work that's been done. So once you get the approvals and you're going to implement a large change like this, you could integrate with the projects module in ServiceDesk Plus, where you could track progress and projects and milestones. You can track the progress, and you could use Gantt charts to see where it's actually progressing, how the change that's associated to the project is progressing, where we are. Do you need to manage resources? And assure quality with change reviews. So we have review process in place so that you could track the reviews, you could document them. If you need to like keep communicating with the teams or with the technicians or with the stakeholders, you need to make an announcement. You could do all of that through change management and service desk. So this way, you have one tool in place which not only just like helps you implement and track changes, but we're also going to see what are the other added advantages to this. Now, we have seen how effectively ServiceDesk Plus can help us with tracking change management process. So let's take a quick look into our demo. Let's see like what ServiceDesk offers with regards to change and project management. Now, I've logged in as an admin. Now, even if I'm logged in as a technician, I would get similar type of tabs. This is the Enterprise Edition, and I go right into my Change tab. There are a lot of changes that I'm tracking on, and using my change filters, I'm just going to quickly filter my change that I've tracked for cloud. So over here is a change ticket that I've created, which says that on the submission, what is the actual proposal? So I'm moving all my services to the cloud. Here is the plan, and I've associated the assets involved. So on my change record, as you are looking at it right now, I've associated the assets involved. I've associated the services that's going to be affected. This is really crucial because this is going to help me big time plan my change. This is going to help me big time in securing my approvals for the change because this directly helps me analyze the impact. And also, I have different stakeholders involved over here. I have change roles, so I could add more change roles to my particular change. Now, each and every change record that I create in Zilker involves different people. So I have change roles, so I can decide who is going to be part of that particular change using my change roles. And as you can see here, there are like 6 stages: submission, planning, approval, implementation, review, close. So there are like a lot of these these stages. Now, the best part is like from submission, if I have to go ahead to planning, make some changes to it, I cannot do so because my change is right under the submission stage and it's locked down. So up or until I'm done with my submission stage, I cannot move to the planning stage. Now, this by here itself says that how tightly coupled our change management process is. It's really airtight, secure, and auditors do love this exact process. There are clients who use ServiceDesk Plus to track entire change management process, and this particular siloed structure where it has to be approved, authorized to move to the next stage has helped teams have successful changes implemented. And also auditors do love this exact process because once after I move over, I cannot make any changes over here at all. So all this data is like locked down and nothing can be changed. So here is the conversation that's going to have like all communications that's going out from the particular change record. So change management in ServiceDesk Plus works like almost exactly like request management, where the conversations from a specific change is being tracked, as well as the system notification. So any approval emails or any notification that goes out from this particular change is exactly being tracked over here. So this is what I referred about communication. So it happens throughout all these stages and it's secure. Now, during my planning, again, I could break down my change into different parts. So this says like impact. So impact is where I could actually go ahead and say, what is my current process, how I wanted to change, like how is it going to impact the organization. So I could break down all the parts, and I could also figure out the backout plan, the downtime, the rollout plan. So I could go ahead and add every data in detail. So it's a free text form, so I could document every data very granular over here. So in my planning phase, I'm going to like use the data from the submission stage, plan accordingly. Now, in this particular process, while planning, if there are incidents that were reported, with regards to this particular change, I can go ahead and associate the incidents or the particular problem right into this particular planning phase. Now, the incidents that's created could be of different ways. It may be either the incident would have triggered the change, or just because of this particular change that's being implemented, there are like a couple of incidents that's being reported. I can like segment and track them accordingly. And also, if there is a problem ticket that was created earlier because of on-premise services failing or not being accessible, and moving to the cloud is the best solution of it, I can also go ahead and attach that particular problem ticket. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because this helps me in planning. So this helps me exactly in planning my entire progress. So this way, with my problems and incidents in one place, it helps me plan how my change has to be performed. So this is the data I'm going to use exactly into my analysis phase. Now then, based on this data and based on the downtime that I'm gathering, I can go ahead and do my approvals. So approvals is of two types. One is we do the cab recommendations. I can add different cabs, and I could send out emails to all these cab members. They can secure their decisions through the email, and based on the cab recommendations, I can go ahead and automatically approve my change. If not, I can get all the recommendations over here, and the change manager will have an option to approve, and the change manager can approve the change. So these are ways where like I could get my approvals done. Once my approval is done, I could implement the entire change either using tasks or either using projects. Now, we have seen how to submit a change, how the planning works, like what are the components involved in approval, and how I could implement my change. Once my implementation is done, so the implementation right now is carried out through projects. Once it is done, I could like document the entire change implementation under the review. Review, as I said earlier, is very important because only over here you will understand what was planned or what was proposed initially in the submission stage, what was the planning with regards to the downtime, the cost, and the approvals are secured based on the planning. Now, during implementation is where you're going to come up with challenges, where you're going to come up with issues, the cost exceeds. So there's going to be a lot of these challenges coming up, and that goes right into your review. So review is kind of a free text form, so you could go ahead, document all the process or all the scenarios that you've encountered during this particular change process, and then go ahead and close the change. Now, this should have now, by now you have got an idea that ServiceDesk Plus has workflow that controls each and every stage of a change. It has templates and roles that controls like what are the fields that needs to be there and what are the roles that I need to have for this particular template. So the moment a change is created using a specific template, the corresponding roles and fields do come up. So now I'm going to take you into the admin configuration and help you understand how important it is to like configure different parts for this particular change. So let's quickly take a look at the different process involved. Now, let me go to the admin console, and let me just quickly create, let me just show you the components of a change. So I go right into the admin tab, and in the admin tab, the first thing I'm going to look into is change templates. Now, if you have already configured templates for incident or service, configuring it for change is no big different. It's very simple. So I go into an existing template. So a new template looks exactly the same, but without the template name. So I could give it a name, and I could also define what workflow this template should follow. So we're going to see workflow very soon, but you could define what workflow this particular template has to follow. You can set it up as a default template. also you could like mark it as an emergency template. So while creating a change record, you could just quickly pull down an emergency change template. Then I have change details where I could say what are all the fields that I would require on this particular change. Now, if you look at these fields are quite similar, like exactly what you had in your incident management or service management. Apart from the fields that you see in the incident or service management, there are a couple of new fields, which is like change type. Now, change type is nothing but what type of change it is. Now, in ServiceDesk Plus, you can not only just track like normal changes or standard change, emergency changes. Using our change type, you could actually control how the change has to flow through. So I'm going to go right into my admin tab, and I have my change types. You can configure different change types, and the best part of defining a change type is you could also set it as a pre-approved change. So if I use this particular change type, which means my approval stage is bypassed, and right from planning, it goes directly to implementation. So this is a change type you could use for changes that does not require an approval, and we're going to see what are those changes in a short time. Now, I also have like a couple of these roles on my change template, which are change roles. We are also going to see what change roles are. And every change that I create should have a scheduled start and an end time. So this is a new field that would not be there on incident or service templates, and services affected or assets involved. Now, when we discussed our change process initially, we discussed about the impact, the risk a change has. So we have a field dedicated for risk, which can again be configured into the admin tab, change management and risk. And also the services affected and assets involved is really there to include your business services, your IT services, and then also the assets. The assets that you use will also need to be associated over here. So this helps to understand the impact of this particular change. So that's why we have these fields. Now, once this change details view is customized, and again, you could use those fields from the left-hand side. If not, you could add more fields just by dragging and dropping it right into the canvas. And we offer like different type of fields for change. Once this is done, you could just go ahead and configure change roles. So you could say what are the roles that is required for this particular change. Now we saw how we could create the template. Now, since we are into the change roles, we just need to understand what these roles are and what is the benefit of this particular role. Now, the roles to be reflected over here, the roles has to be configured under the admin tab. Under problem and change management, we have change roles. So this is not like the regular technician role that you configure for the help desk. This role is dedicated for the change. Now, when I click on add new role, I not only just get the role name, I could also say if this role is applicable for all users or only for technicians. And I could say what are the access permissions I need to define. Now, I can say if it's for all users, which means it's going to include requesters and technicians. If it's only for technicians, yeah, it's just for the techs. And I could say who can view what stage and what are the operations they could do. Like, can they view, edit, or approve? Now, the important thing about the roles is that we can involve end users as well. And when end users get access to the change, they get access to the change tab. So if there is a change that is waiting for their approval only on the implementation stage, they get access to it. Once done, none of the data from other stages would be visible. So, no actions can be done on any other stage except for the stage that they are authorized to access. Now, what if the change approver is not a technician or an admin in the system? So that's where change role comes in. So we have roles in the system like change approver or change manager. These two roles are the only roles that allow requesters or technicians to approve. Now, change manager is only for technicians, whereas change approver is for all users. I can still control this role to be available only for technicians. Now, this way, when I create a change role and when I associate my change role to a template, and while creating the ticket if I define who my change approver is going to be or change manager is going to be, then that person can only approve the change. So the decision relies on that particular person. So that is why create different roles and use all these roles right on the change template. Now, once done, when you're creating a change ticket, whoever is going to, based on the type of change, if so be it for IT department or so be it for facilities or finance or HR, whoever is going to be stakeholders like approvers or decision makers like CAB. So you could involve the right people at the right time. So this is where our change role comes right into picture. There are like a couple of default change roles, like change owner, who's going to own the change planner, implementer, so who's going to plan, implement the change, reviewer, who's going to review the change. So we have these different type of roles. And if they're like default hard-coded roles, you cannot make any changes to it. And any role can have authorization access for any stage except for approval, because approval can be done only by users who have change approver or change manager roles. Now we have seen how these roles are created and where these roles come into effect. So it comes right into the template. And now finally, I have field and form roles on the template. To complete the entire progress of my template, the final feature we are going to discuss is field and form rules. Field and form rules is same as how we have it in incident and service requests with a little bit of feature changes. Now, field and form rules can be configured to control the change templates, which means that when someone is filling out the form, I can give controlled actions while someone accesses the form or someone changes fields on the form, or finally when someone submits the ticket. Now, this can be either by a requester or a technician. So the person who's like working on the ticket could be a requester. The person creating the ticket could be an admin or a technician. So you can have field and form rules work on form load, field change, or on form submit. So when users pick a form or change fields or finally submit the ticket, the change ticket, the field and form rules come into work. So when I'm creating a new rule, I can provide a name. I could choose like when this rule is supposed to be executed. What is the event? Like is it form load, field change, or form submit? And based on conditions, you can trigger the actions. So if you don't want to like have a lot of fields listed on the typical scenario would be like, I don't want to list my service request or my request categories into my change. I can just say like on form load. So without any criteria, I can just say hide service categories. So this way, without just any actions, I could say hide fields, or I could also like use scripts to remove fields. So this way I could like do all these options like enabling a field, disabling a field, show, hide, mandate, execute scripts, and scripts are really easy as well to construct over here. So using field and form rules, I can control this entire form. What are the fields needs to be shown, how it needs to be like filled in. I could also like guide users step by step by showing the right fields at the right time, mandate, non-mandate fields. So based on a field that is shown, I can not only show that field, I can also mandate fields. So these are all different operations that I could do to control this form in change module. Now, once my change template is all created, I'm going to save. And before saving, there is a process that says change workflows or follows this particular change follows a specific workflow. What are these workflows? Where are they configured from? Now, we have seen how to construct a template, how the roles come in handy, and we have also seen like the different operations of a particular change. Now we're going to talk about change workflows. Now this again available under the admin tab, and we have change workflows. So over here, I can construct different workflows. Either I can just have the same workflow, or I can have different workflows based on the different type of changes, and I can associate it to a template. Now, let's see how the workflow looks like. I just click on configure workflow, and over here, I have all my 6 stages: submission, planning, approval, implementation, review, and close. Now, this is where it is really important for us to understand how my workflow is going to be. Now, I've always advised my customers to like take a paper and pen, write the workflow, or like write the different stages ServiceDesk offers, and based on the type of change, if it's an emergency change or if it's a standard change or if it's a normal change, how do you want the change to proceed? Now, say for instance, if we take a normal change, so the moving to the cloud is a normal change, but or it could be a major change, which means it has to go through all the stages, like plan it, like submit the data, plan based on the data that's been provided, approve the change, upon approval, implement it, review, and close. It has to go through all these stages. Now, what I should ensure over here is once my data is added and submitted, once someone accepts or authorizes the change in the submission stage, you can notify people, move it to the next stage. So you get all the stages listed over here, and then notify the users accordingly. Now, since you're going to configure this workflow and the change for the first time, I would say go easy on the workflow, which means that do not add too many notifications and overwhelm the users, because these notifications are really crucial. So if you look at this, you can not only involve the roles, you can also control what notification content has to go into each of these particular notifications. So when you do that, when a user gets the notification mail, they also get an option to approve. They also get an option to like view the details. Now, if there are going to be too many emails for a particular stage change, then that's going to overwhelm the users. The important notifications may be ignored. So I would honestly say start with just simple notifications. So once the change is accepted, just you need not notify after upon the accepting, but move it to the next stage and notify the person in the next stage. Likewise, in approval, in planning, once the change is planned out, move it to the next stage and notify who needs to be notified for this particular change. So if I'm going to say like I'm notifying the change manager, change approver, then click on OK. So right now it goes to the approval stage and it's going to notify these people. I click on save. Likewise, once the approval is done, who should be notified? So over here, I could just ignore any notifications before that, but after it's been approved, I'm like moving it to the implementation stage in progress status, and I can notify the change implementer. So this is how I'm gonna define my workflow for a major or a normal change. So I'm gonna go stage by stage. I'm gonna say which role has to approve, what happens when it approves, which role has to be notified. And the reason I'm choosing the roles over here is because on my change template, I have only roles, and based on the type of change, different people can, the users can vary. So if the change is for IT department, the approvers, the decision makers are different. But if the service is involved, or if it's for facilities department, the stakeholders and the approvers are different. So that is why we are using the roles as the notification mechanism in the workflow, and based on the change, these users may vary. So we have seen how the workflow works. We have seen how the change type is important, because upon submitting, if it's a standard change and if I set it to pre-approved, on this workflow, it would ignore the approval process and goes right to implementation because it's pre-approved. Also, here is a small option that says auto-approve change request when all the CAB members recommended. So this is what I was explaining earlier. So you could enable this option in the particular workflow that you're creating, so that when the change goes to the approval stage and all your CAB members are added to it, and when they start recommending, once the recommendation is done and based on this particular option, when all of them have recommended for it, the change automatically changes to the approved state. So rather than the change manager or the change approver approving it manually, you could do it through this particular recommendation. Now we have seen the change templates, we have seen the change workflow, we have seen roles, change types. The last feature to conclude this particular process is going to be stage and status. So this is what we have been using on our particular change workflow. And I would say when you edit a stage, you get the status and the details, and here is the notification content that goes out. Now we have the editor in such a way that you could just type the dollar and you could get all the links like all the system variables listed. So here is a link for login or non-login, which is like if it's an approval, it's a non-login link. You could just include it. It goes out. Once the notification goes out, people can just click on it and view the data. So you could add it for different stage as well. And the approvals can be done through the mobile app or through non-login as well. So users don't need to log in and approve. So you want to change the notification content for every stage. Here is where you're going to do it under stage and status. Now, all these components that's put together is where it comes to our change template. Now, not only I have my template in place, I also have my roles. These are the roles that is added in the roles section, which I could use it on the template. And on the change template is where I associate the workflow. Now, the workflow is going to notify different roles. So that's also already there on my template. Field and form rules, as I said earlier, you could create different rules that works for all the users or technicians. And it works like when someone pulls up the form, or when someone's going to like change fields, or when someone submits a change ticket. Now, also, I could perform different actions, guide the users who's filling the change form step by step by like showing the right fields, hiding fields that are not relevant, mandating fields. And also there's a separate space where I could write scripts to perform different operations like field validations. So if there is a change type as major and it cannot be less than 6 days for a major change type, you could do date validation such that the scheduled start time and end time cannot be less than 6 for a change type like major. So there are different operations or validations that you could do through scripts as well. Now, with all of this data put together, it comes to my change ticket. So as we've seen a while ago, once I start creating my new change, I not only have my change workflow automatically listed, I also like get to field the mandatory fields. The fields are controlled as per my template. I can choose the services affected and the assets involved. Once I submit my change request, here is a pre-defined change that I would like to show you. So this is the change that is being created. Now, it's a normal change, and the change data has been captured. Now, once this change has all been created, to plan and to take decisions on this particular change, I'm going to make use of my assets involved and services affected. Now, the assets are like a data center, then the backup data center, the services like any services that goes through it. So using my change record, associating my assets and services, I get my particular relationship transcripted over here. Now, this data has been fetched from my CMDB. So as I said before, the change management not only works with the IT service management process, but also with the IT asset management process. Now, this is where I need to have my effective CMDB configured in place so that right from the change record, I can view all my services, my assets, how they are related with each other. So here is a scenario where while I'm going to move these services to the cloud, I'm going to get an understanding of where my servers are located, where exactly it goes to the cloud, what's the firewall, what are the other services that branches out to it, what are the servers that's branching out to it, who takes care of it, and what are the teams that use my particular service. So this is how I could get my entire data through CMDB on my change ticket. So this is how the change in tandem with our CMDB and asset management can help us analyze the impact. Likewise, right from the assets, we got the data. So if I go to the services, I can just do the same. Right from my services, I can just branch out and understand what server the service has been hosted onto. And from there, I could just expand and view the entire data. So this is how ServiceDesk plus CMDB and asset management along with service catalog helps me analyze my impact of a particular change. Based on this data, I can go ahead and do my planning. So I can document all my planning steps. And then once it is done, I can go ahead and approve the particular change. And as we've seen earlier, if all these users recommend my particular change, then my change automatically goes to the approved state. Or the change manager can go ahead and approve this particular change. And implementing a large change like this is not easy at all. I can do it through tasks, but the tasks with task dependencies just gives us like a linear approach to manage resources or to track how my project is progressing or my change is progressing. It's going to be difficult to do it through tasks. Now, this is where I have created a project and I've associated the project to the change. So now we are seeing how project management comes into play for this particular change. So let's take a quick look at it. Now I'm going to have my projects in place and I'm going to have my change in place. So right from change, I can create a new project and I can add all the data from the change. So this is just going to bring in the data from the change right into my particular project, and I can click on save. Once done, the project is created. Now over here for this particular project, I could go ahead and define all my details that is required. Once after I define my project details, the next important step is to break down this project into different milestones. So I could add different phases of this particular migration into milestones, because each milestone can have its own set of tasks. So this is where I could create different tasks and I can assign it to the owners. So this is how I'm breaking down my entire project into milestones and tasks. And I could get a quick overview of how my project is branched out. So it's a filter between members and tasks. I can also say between milestones and tasks, how the project has been segmented. Now, once I've broken down my project into milestones and tasks, I can add members. Members are pretty simple. All requesters and technicians from the system can be added as members right into a particular project. To add members, I could just click on add member. And these are roles that's associated to user's profile. But right for this particular project, I can decide what role this particular person has to play. And I could just click on add. This way, I'm adding requesters or technicians right into my project, and I can define what role they need to play. Now, the same user can also work in projects, can also work in change. So a requester can have access to change records as well as to project records. This way, the users can work in change requests as well as on project requests, and also report incidents as well. So not everyone needs to be a technician to approve a change, to create a project, to work on a change. Requesters can also be included as a part of it. Now, once I've added my members, I could just go ahead and associate owners for all my milestones, for all my tasks. I could go ahead and set schedule start date and end date. And once I start completing my particular tasks, then my milestone progresses. So the completion of tasks would be leading towards the completion of my project. So I can track the progress over here. And then once my milestones are completed, which means my entire project is coming to a completion. Now, when I'm implementing my change as a project, there are chances where I may get a lot of issues reported, or there may be like a couple of issues that's coming up and it's not according to the plan. So right under the association, I can go ahead and associate those relevant tickets right into my particular project, because this is also going to help me during my review phase, because review is not just based on the project and the change. Anything that is causing deviation from what has been planned has to be documented in the review. It's going to be helpful for audit as well. So right from within a change, I can create a project, and right from a project, I could like go ahead, associate the instance that's been reported. Now also, when I'm working on this project, and if there are going to be any child changes for this particular project, I can create it, or I can associate existing changes right into this particular project. Now, if you take a quick look from the change record, I created a project. So that particular change is over here. So project change that initiated the project. Now, while working on the project, I may have issues coming up, so I can associate the existing issues that's been reported, as well as there might be a new change that is raised, because a separate change to open up a firewall, or separate change to like open up ports in the firewall. So that's not part of the existing project. For existing change, this is a change by itself. I could just go ahead and create a new change. Now, this way, we are having a sequence of association between different IT service management modules, IT asset management modules as well, right within one change record. And if your organization is going to have like frequent projects coming up in a similar model, you could also create project templates right under the admin tab. So right under the admin tab, you could create different project templates. You could also have templates with milestones and tasks added to it. And while you're creating the project right from the change, you can use this particular template, and it makes it much more easier for you to create a project because all the milestones and tasks are predefined in it. So this way, we have seen how to create change templates, change workflows, change roles, how to customize the notifications, how the services and assets are related to the change. We have seen how the projects can be created from a change and the vice versa. And we have seen how like project templates work, how the project works, and also tracking down your entire business projects is quite simple. You not only need to like view the Gantt view of one project. So right from this project, you could view the Gantt view, but also you could just compare it between all the projects. So if you click on the Gantt view over here, you could just get a list of like all milestones and all the tasks, or between all the projects, you could view all the tasks. You could also filter it out based on different status, like priority or project status or project types, and also between different years. So this is how I can make use of my project's overview map and as well as Gantt view to understand how my projects are trending, how my projects from change is trending, and also to take to your business meetings or CAP meetings. I would strongly recommend to use the Gantt view as a PDF. You can export the Gantt view as a PDF, or the entire project sequence can be exported as a project overview map. So this will also come in handy with your board meetings or with your business discussions. And likewise, there are other features on the change that will help you during your board meetings, such as like change calendar. So if I go right into my change, and there is change calendar. So over here, you could look into all the changes that's been scheduled and whatever changes. So I'm just going to like switch my filter to all changes. So if you take a look over here, all the changes are being listed. So when you're when you're having meetings or when you're going to take decisions, this change calendar is going to help you. You can filter between locations. You can filter between like different the status of the change. Also, there are like different change types that's listed below. So you can pick up only like emergency changes or like documented changes or standard changes. So you could use these filters. So use the project overview map, the Gantt view map, the change calendar to take decisions of a particular change. So we have seen how change management works. We have seen how project management works. We have seen how they all come in handy with each other and how it helps business to take good decisions. Now, here are a couple of best practices that I would like to suggest everyone. Now, you can orchestrate large change implementations through projects. So we have seen the implementation of changes projects, seek expert opinion through CAB and change approvals, keep stakeholders informed where you could send out notifications, announcements. You could create announcements right from within a change record. So when you're going to like implement and if the servers are going to be down, you could create announcements, email the announcements to the entire organization, make change management a routine using like change templates and workflows. So that way you could easily create change records, get a clear vision of risk and impact using our CMDB. So that is where CMDB and assets helps you to understand the impact of particular change. Then you could like plan for rollout, downtime, and backout plans using our analysis phase. So over there, using the planning phase, so over there, you could like picture how the change will be implemented, what's the downtime that is required, so that you don't stretch your implementation times. Just so you know, these are all our upcoming masterclass series. Please do go ahead and register for them so that you can have your live question and answers answered. You would get a recording of the webinar as well. So thank you so much for your participation and have a good day. Thank you.